Welcome back. You're watching the ET Money Show, and it's time for the Tech Tuesday segment. This is, as the name suggests, the time of the week when we focus on technology. And today we want to talk about the iPhone SE. It is, dare I say, the Apple equivalent of a value for money phone. Let's introduce our guest for the day. We've got Dhruv Bhutani, who's the editor of Android Authority. Thank you so much, Dhruv, for taking the time as always. Let's get off the bat with the first question, which is, what are your initial reactions to this iPhone SE? It's the latest rendition of the SE. It is, some would say, a little bit nostalgic if you look at it, right?
I mean, I would say it's Apple being incredibly brave to carry forward a 5-year-old design in 2022. But that's how Apple goes about things. Apple does what Apple does. It's an interesting phone. It is the lowest barrier to entry into the iOS ecosystem, and of course, Apple's given it the same processor as the iPhone 13 series. So I think what they're aiming for is, like, especially in the international markets, it's for contract buyers. And for India, it's for people who want a bit of performance, people who want a taste of the iOS ecosystem, and want a phone that's going to last them a couple of years. It's not quite an all-rounder, especially if you start looking at cameras and the design for that matter. It is, like you said, quite nostalgic because it is the same design as the iPhone 8, which launched in 2017.
And it has that fingerprint home button, right?
Right.
I think a lot of people have gotten used to the fact that there aren't any home buttons anymore. So in a sense, you'd be stepping back in time. But at the same time, it's the newest chip. Tell us what that chip is capable of and what this phone is going to be capable of.
Right. So it's got the A15 Bionic, which is, debatably, it is the fastest smartphone chip around right now, and it handily beats Qualcomm's alternatives. So if you want performance, like, this is basically it. Also, because it's not packing in the highest resolution displays and all of that, you could possibly expect a little more performance here. So if you like to play games on your phone and you want an iPhone and you don't have a big budget, now that's a bit of a niche. But if you fit into that niche, the iPhone SE, the 2022 model, is actually going to be a really good fit because of, it's going to easily max out whatever games you throw at it. But from Apple's point of view, sort of overpowering this phone, the idea is not to create, a budget gaming smartphone. The idea is to make sure that this phone lasts you a really long time. And Apple has set a precedent for like at least 5 to 6 years of software support for their phones. Nothing on the Android side matches that. So 6 years down the line, there's still going to be enough power to make sure that your phone is running nice and smooth and should be able to handle all the essential tasks at least. And that's the basic idea behind giving it, a pretty damn powerful chipset.
So on the one hand, you have the newest chip. On the other hand, you have a bigger battery that the latest iPhone SE will have as compared to its predecessor. So therefore, what you're saying makes a lot of sense. However, there are a few cons to also consider, right? The fact that the screen is not OLED. It's essentially LCD. So what, according to you, are the biggest pros and cons of this particular model?
There's only two pros here. There's the chipset, which is the 15 Bionic, same as the other iPhone 13 devices. And there's the price at 43,900 approximately. It is the most affordable 2022 smartphone from iPhone. But when you start listing out the cons, and especially considering the other options on the market, there are quite a few. Like you mentioned, the screen is not OLED, but forget about OLED, forget about high refresh rate. It's a 720p display in 2022, 4.7 inches, which even for users who want a slightly more compact phone, might be a bit too cramped today after getting used to the kind of displays you're getting on other phones. Beyond that, it's just got one single camera. So you can forget about ultra wide or telephoto or macros that you're getting on other devices. I mean, those are some of the more obvious cons when you look at it. And even from a battery point of view, the battery is obviously not as large as what you're getting on the iPhone 13. So, you can't really expect the same kind of battery life. Um, and I mean, I think from a cons point of view, again, you got to consider you can still pick up an iPhone 12 mini or even an iPhone 11 for not a lot more money. And those will give you a much more modern design and more capabilities like more cameras for that matter for not a lot more money. So those are things that you will have to consider when looking at buying this phone.
Dhruv, I was actually going to come to that before we get into the Android equivalents within the Apple ecosystem itself. I think something that quite a few people are willing to do because of the fact that now these phones are built to last years, they have the software support. Just wait till it's not as new and shiny as it is when it is launched. Is that a good strategy to have?
That's absolutely a valid strategy because I mean, Apple is not even changing up the design every year. So, if you want the flaunt value, it's not as if you're going to get caught out for that. But, beyond that, like these phones are very, very overspec'd. You're not going to be running out of power, running out of steam in an year or two. These phones are built to last you a while. And especially when it comes to the iPhone SE, this one costs around 44,000 rupees. For around 47,000 rupees, you can get an iPhone 11, which is a 2-year-old model. And for around 49,000 rupees, you can get yourself the iPhone 12 mini, which has, a processor which is nearly as fast. It's got a much more modern design. You get, amenities like Face ID, you get multiple cameras. I mean, in fact, the only con in the case of the iPhone 12 mini would be that the battery life isn't that great, but it's not going to be that great on the iPhone SE either. It's a small phone. You can only have that big a battery in it. So if you're on a bit of a budget, the iPhone 11 might actually be a better bet for you, especially around the sales which keep on happening. You can get a pretty good deal on it. And if you can splurge a little bit more, I would still say that you should probably be taking a look at the iPhone 12 mini as well.
Uh, and now this is the part of the conversation I think that a lot of people are going to be keen on, which is when you peg it against the Android ecosystem, and there are a few people that are contemplating a switch from Android to the iOS ecosystem or the Apple ecosystem. Would they be doing themselves a disservice by switching to this particular phone?
Look, I'm going to be perfectly honest here. I mean, Android and iOS, they're not that different anymore. Now, if you want a taste of iOS, if you're like really keen on trying out an iPhone, sure, the iPhone SE is well placed for it. But even in that case, I would suggest that you spend a little bit more and get the iPhone 12 mini instead. Because when you compare it next to the Android competition, there really is no competition. Android phones, at least on a spec sheet level, are I mean, not really going to, I mean, there's no competition at all. You're getting much better cameras, you're getting much better displays, much larger batteries, faster charging. There's a lot of nice to have features which have fast become essentials in the last couple of years. So from that point of view, purely from a spec sheet point of view, Android phones, particularly the OnePlus 9 RT, the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE, these are two really good alternatives. I mean, if you're looking in that ballpark figure, again, I would suggest that you spend a little more and get the iPhone 12 mini or maybe the iPhone 11 instead. The iPhone SE is a decent phone, but it really should be reserved for somebody who, really cannot stretch their budget anymore.
Absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense. And that indeed is the point of this conversation on the ET Money Show. Thank you so much, Dhruv, for taking the time. All right, that brings us to the end of this edition of the ET Money Show. It's been an absolute pleasure bringing it to you. Do stay tuned. Lots more to talk about over the course of this evening. And this is ET Now.